sing a happy song together, and we'll all be a happy family.
Oh, hi, welcome back to the channel. So looking at this theremin, some of the measurements that I have attempted already. And first of all, when we look at the circuit diagram here, if I monitor the voltage at the collector of Q5, that will be the voltage that is fed to the gate of Q6. So looking at that voltage would be quite key really to whether this circuit is varying the voltage as the frequencies are adjusted, whether this actually does do anything, and if this is varying, then we can see what range it does vary across. And that's the first step, I think. And then the next step really is, does the resistance across these, or in effect the impedance to the audio signal, change? Because this is the voltage divider that works with this resistor, so the signal is split between there and there. And it has been pointed out to me that this is the positive rail, not the negative rail as described in the that was printed in the article. That makes any difference really from the audio signal point of view. That resistance drops, then the volume here should drop, and consequently the output would be reduced. So that's kind of my thinking. That really, I've tried some of this already, but I'm going to go over what I've done really. So we're going to look at the voltage on the collector of Q5, which is also the end of R20. So if I look over here, deliberately looking at this upside down because that's the way this is. So we're looking for R20. There's R20, yeah. So the collector end is the lower end. So that's the point I want to look at here. Now, to do this, I'm using my little oscilloscope as a voltmeter. So that's why I've got that connected there, and I've got the ground going up to the chassis, the metal chassis part. So if I turn this on, and I'll just get a line. We're not switched on at the moment. There it is at 0 volts, and this is set to 5 volt per division. So the full 9 volts would be nearly 2 of those divisions. So that's the voltage being monitored there at the collector of Q5. Now I have got an amplifier connected, so I'll just turn that on up there, turn that on. This might make an awful noise, and we'll see. Okay, it's not set up or anything, but there is a noise, so we can see whether the volume changes. Now, this does seem to be having some effects. If we look at the voltage here, it's up high, and we're not seeing that really change. Let's actually touch the thing. It dips down briefly, but it doesn't seem to change the volume. Let's turn the volume down on here. It's very all or nothing, that. volume control. So what we have here is the two volume pitch oscillator coils. So I can vary the frequency by varying this. So let's see if we do get a change in voltage, and there we do. So it's dropping really very low. It's going from about a volt or so and going up to the rail voltage. But does that change the volume? See, it does right near the top end there. It doesn't really seem to vary the volume. It just seems to switch off at a certain point. So there it's actually off, and as I bring this down, it goes from nothing to pretty much the same volume almost instantly. When you get very close there, it is dropping the volume, but it goes from fully on pretty much to fully off with a tiny change in the coil. But if I get close, I'm seeing pitch changes. I touched it then, but seeing pitch changes, but I'm not really seeing volume change. It's staying at that volume. Now the other thing we could do, possibly, and it's just possibly, if I move this one out of the way again, let's turn this off again. So possibly we could look at the resistance across the source and drain of Q6. Now I rather expect that trying to just measure that directly will affect the performance of the circuit anyway, but we could see whether the resistance does vary with that voltage. So we're set to ohms. At the moment it's saying open circuit. Okay, so we're now looking at the resistance measured across the field effect transistor. The voltage is near the top, and we are seeing about 4.5 k ohms, which is a lot lower than the 100k of R13. Now if I vary the match of the two coils and drop the voltage down, and then the impedance or the resistance across the source to drain has gone right up in the megohms. So we've got 61 megohms on there now. And as I bring this up, it's actually gone even higher. This is no longer reading it. Now bring the voltage near the top. Let's see how close I can get. Yeah, we're now at the top there. I'm adjusting very, very slightly by jiggling this and sliding the core out. That's what I'm doing there. So yeah, we bring this up till we reach that voltage. Again, we're down to the region of 4k, which should considerably drop the volume coming out. Possibly what's happening is it virtually cuts it off instantly because it's such a huge drop. So let's go back to the unpleasant noise. Right. Yeah. It does actually cut it off. but varying the distance of my hand from the antenna here doesn't seem to be changing this, even though it's very, very close. Maybe there's a slight change there, but we're in the megaohms, so let's try bringing this down lower. If I get down to there, things start to go wrong, and that could well be something to do with the measuring instruments. But we can get down to just a few hundred ohms, and I'm pretty sure that the effects we're seeing are the effects of the measuring instruments there. But basically the bottom line is what we seem to see is it goes from pretty much full volume to completely off as the resistance suddenly drops when I get close to the highest voltage. There's a sudden drop. And it doesn't matter if I'm right close to that, if I adjust this right close to that sudden drop, I don't really see any effect from here. It just seems to be an on-off situation. So I think the field effect transistor Q6 is acting like a switch rather than a variable resistance across there. So we could try a potentiometer instead of Q6, but I'm pretty sure that would actually work then as a volume control. So we have two issues in a way. One is that this is acting like a switch anyway, even when I tune these circuits. And the other issue seems to be that moving my hand nearer further from the antenna doesn't seem to be changing the adjustment. So those are two issues that I seem to have. So any thoughts on that would be welcome. And that's it for now. So we'll catch you on the next one, and bye for now.
Sing a happy song together, and we'll all be a happy family.